As you have realized, we decided not to have a very glossy digital marketing only session with you, but basically go quite content heavy on the end-to-end digitalization of the company. I'm now going to take you through the second half, starting with customer development. And although the focus is on data-led selling and the digitalization of our route to market, I will give a small intro also on where we stand with e-commerce. Obviously, and you have seen that also during your visits here in the trade and what you see when you shop as consumers and the way you shop as a consumer, that the path to purchase has radically changed. And you know the story, it has become much more complex, many more touch points, and we basically need to make sure that we find the citizens on their path to purchase and influence them at the right moments. Also, and for those of you who know China, where Ali now comes with the new retail concept, many more retailers move to an omni-channel type of setup. And omni-channel actually for us is really good because the true omni-channel shopper is a very high value opportunity. So for us, these are an important target group. And although obviously the growth of e-commerce is slowing down, it slows down on a much larger base. And with 30% growth globally, and probably 300% growth in Myanmar, but 13% globally, it's still the fastest growing retail channel that we have at the moment. And where are we as Unilever? I think, again, this year, we have a very fast growing e-commerce year. We grow at more than 50%, which is, with a channel growing at 13% ahead of the channel. But you also have seen Graham yesterday, where he said, basically, our ambition is to do at least 10% in e-commerce. So despite that, the fact that we go at 53%, a major step up is needed. And the growth in e-commerce comes actually from many different e-commerce models. We talk about e-commerce, but that is actually a container concept, because within e-commerce there are different plays. So what is now the Unilever strategy, very high level around e-commerce? First, that more and more we need to design our brands and products for the channel. In certain e-commerce channels, you can sell the goods you also sell in grocery stores. For example, in a Tesco.com, the shopping environment is quite close to a physical store retail environment from a portfolio and shopping mission point of view. But especially when you go to single item like the Amazon world, we need to start, when we really want to capture the opportunity of the channel, we need to design portfolios which are very channel specific. The second one is B2B. We service approximately 7.5 million stores. As I told you in Manila a number of years ago, we have digitized that route to market. So we basically capture what we sell in a store in Laos or in Santiago. We know real time what we are selling. So we have done that with the LeverEdge program. But as you have heard today in the India session, we now need to move that to the next level. And Badri, in a couple of minutes, will take you through our programs. And then last but not least, we need to organize ourselves for this omni-channel environment. And you know what Ali tries to do with new retail. It's actually not about channels, but making the system super consumer focused. So it doesn't matter where you are, but the system knows who you are and what you need and what you could potentially want. That is another technical play where we need to develop the capabilities to become part of that. And obviously, all the work that we are doing on the digitalization of our end-to-end system will play into this. With this, I hand over to Badri. And here you go.
Thanks, Peter. A very good afternoon to all of you. Some of you have been really curious about what my role is from the various interactions I've had. I actually am from Hindustan Lever, but I'm currently doing a global role leading a route to market and B2B e-commerce. And what I'll be taking you through is largely in line with what you'd have seen Tan present as part of India CD presentation, but how we are truly replicating that at scale across many markets and building these capabilities in what we would call as general trade, distributive trade. The aspect of digital that we have seen in the last 3 years is consumers have fundamentally changed the way they interact with companies, the purchase decisions, the buying decisions, as well as the influence digital platforms have had. And the interesting aspect is the same thing has also been transposed onto retailers. Most retailers themselves are consumers. They have similar expectations what they have as a consumer also for their B2B or business practices. So they're equally on smartphones. They're equally engaging with companies, understanding brands, products online. Their service expectations, and I think this was spoken quite a bit in the India deck, the service expectations of retailers today as consumers have significantly got exposed to the likes of an Amazon and Alibaba, and they expect the same thing from manufacturers or service providers like CPG companies like Unilever or competitors. So this is a big area where we have to dial up in terms of our capabilities to meet the service expectations of a small store or a trade shop. And the last but not least is there is a significant loss of business and shoppers that these small stores face with the advent of e-commerce, because they lose more and more of these shoppers who move into digital platforms. They possibly have a loss of business and turnover. So there is a strong intent. There is a very strong intent by these small operators to digitize their operations, compete in the e-commerce space, and not lose their shoppers. So given the tailwind of digital, given the intent of retailers, and given Unilever's scale and our operations in general trade, it's a perfect platform for us to really move fast in what we call as B2B and B2B2C. For us, it's a huge opportunity to build on an existing strength. You heard multiple references to our footprint, 7.5 million stores covered directly. We have our ability to fully track our operations through our distributors, from distributors to store. We have moved to a stage of mass customization. Our ability to customize the sell-in operations to each of these stores is driven by our mobility and analytics tools. We have all this in place with the work we've done over the last 6-7 years. Leverage is operational today in 25+ countries, etc. The big challenge now is, Stan referred to this in his presentation, how do we go from mass customization to hyper-personalization? And I think that's a big difference where you're trying to also make the purchase or the buying experience of the store really customized as per commerce platforms. And that's why I think the role of a B2B platform or a B2B app is going to be significant in driving purchase decisions, self-service, at the same time looking at content which is highly customized and relevant to them. Can we have the first AV, please?
With e-commerce changing the way we shop, our retailers too now expect e-commerce standards of doing business. They want to order whatever they want, whenever they want, and have it delivered at a time of their convenience. Over the years, Unilever has built up a strong direct reach in emerging markets. This has been a competitive advantage for Unilever. But the rules of the game can change soon with digital and e-commerce. Therefore, we need to proactively complement our physical reach with a digital reach. In other words, we need to transform and digitize our route to market. So what is Unilever's strategy? To create brilliant customer experiences, right from digitally capturing the retailer's order to the distributor, to influencing the shopper's purchase decision from the point of sale. Through a digital platform, we customize the buying experience for our retailers from our distributors and our shoppers from our retailers.
So you would have heard of this as part of the India CD presentation. We have two components, two solutions. One is B2B, another one is B2B2C. The first aspect is about how do we completely digitize our buying behavior of our retailers from Unilever, which is basically B2B. The second one is how do we create an ecosystem for our shoppers to buy from neighborhood retailer stores through e-commerce solutions. I think the second one is really interesting from the aspect where we are also trying to create an open platform through which Unilever can curate e-commerce solutions for general trade, at the same time be in a kind of an advantageous position in terms of being a lead player, in terms of driving specific retailer solutions, category management, shopper basket analysis, etc. So that's the intent of these two solutions. B2B is obviously more business-driven in terms of transactions, ordering from the stores into our distributors. We already have that through our sales rep, mobility tools, etc. But what we're trying to do is a fundamental change. Rather than rely on a sales rep or somebody coming and collecting an order from the store, we're trying to drive self-service, which is basically customized experiences, personalize the whole app in terms of the way the store needs it, and drive self-service. Now, what are the benefits from B2B digital solution? I think you've seen a little bit of this from the India deck. For us, it's convenient because it's for the retailer, it's anytime ordering. He doesn't have to depend upon somebody coming into the store to collect an order. So it's anytime ordering like a B2C platform. There's personalization, both in terms of content, promotions, all the stuff that he has for historical sales, etc. And there's a lot of information transparency. And it is twofold. First is what we call as pricing, because pricing is critical for retailers to have confidence to buy in any platform. Second is promotions. So both of them are very critical for the adoption of retailers of a particular app, pricing and promotions. For Unilever, it gives us an ability to curate experiences which are personalized, both in terms of availability and in terms of assortment that you really want to push into the stores. And we also believe that this gives us a greater degree of influence and engagement with the store. We today have a lot of engagement and influence to our stores, but it's largely driven by what we would call as a large workforce out there in the field, engaging with the stores and driving sales. But if you can transform and transpose the same capability onto a digital platform, your ability to connect with the stores directly is going to be a significant capability that we want to take into the future. We also believe that this gives us significant enhanced retailer reach. And the primary reason for that is today in sales, in distributive trade, or in general trade, you have two visits which normally happen in most parts of the world. There is a sales rep who goes and collects an order, and there's a delivery unit which goes and delivers the order. If you can get bulk of the orders to start coming by self-service, you cut basically one visit, and your cost to serve starts coming down. You can replow a lot of these costs to enhance your reach and cover more number of stores. And we have seen some examples of this in different parts of the world, where your cost to serve comes down, and that gives you a little bit of capability to expand your reach into more white space markets. We also believe that the role of the sales rep will fundamentally get redefined in the next 2 to 3 years. We all know automation is in, there's a lot of machine capability, et cetera. And what automation does is it takes away any jobs which are routine, which are basically pretty much repetitive, mechanical largely, and does not have any value-adding tasks. And in sales, what you see is in many parts, there is a degree of repetition in the job, and there is 80% of what you would call as repetitive orders and 20% of what you would call as a personalized sell-in or a push which happens from the sales rep. We believe that with automation, there could be a significant change in the role of a sales rep, move them away from routine tasks and move the role to more value-adding tasks. Now, the B2B2C solution is the one which is deployed at the retailer store for him to go online. I think this is a great capability on an open platform where we enable the store to go online. I think that's the single biggest advantage for the store because they don't have the wherewithal to go online on their own. And here, Unilever is curating a platform through which stores can go online and compete in the e-commerce space with the neighborhood shoppers. And we leverage what we would call as the local delivery infrastructure. Many of you in your store visits might have noticed or picked up information such as what's the percentage of delivery which happens in large urban cities, 30, 35% are home deliveries, et cetera. So there is an existing delivery infrastructure which is there in most large stores. We are capitalizing on that infrastructure to deliver what you would call as hyperlocal e-commerce solutions. And for the store, it's a very convenient way for him to go online and retain his set of shoppers and not lose them to the new e-commerce platforms, et cetera. For Unilever, there's direct shopper engagement, our ability to make connections from retailer and go beyond the retailer to the shopper, understand shopper baskets much better beyond Unilever products. What do they buy with what? What's the size of Unilever products within the basket? What are the categories which are doing well? What are the trends, et cetera? And last but not least, I think Tan referred to this multiple times in his presentation. General trade has been a key component of Unilever's success in many emerging markets. And therefore, we believe these are our true partners, and we should continue to partner them and continue to influence these stores as part of a journey to grow our businesses. So this is a critical component for us in terms of building what you would call as an open platform, e-commerce, hyperlocal solution. Can I have the AV, please?
So how was our journey in 2018? The learnings from the 3 lead markets, Brazil, India, and China, were taken to all the large Unilever markets. The strategy was aligned with the market leadership, and the execution was co-created from design to deploy. And today, we serve thousands of customers digitally through B2B e-commerce. What are the factors that worked for us? Unilever's strategic prioritization of the program, market co-creation with cross-functional squads, and finally, creation of an engaged e-business community. If 2018 was a year of accelerated learning, then in 2019, our goal would be to deploy digital capabilities, both in the back end, through a best-in-class technology commerce platform across the shopper and retailer ecosystems, and in the front end, through optimization of fulfillment processes and last-mile logistics. But most importantly, we need the right digital skills in our teams, and this can be enabled through a Unilever digital shared services model. With this in place, Unilever will be well set to explode B2B e-commerce and serve millions of shoppers and stores digitally by 2020. And this is only just the beginning.
Yeah. So our journey has been very interesting the last couple of years. Obviously, we have a very different business in different parts of the world, very strong markets with very different distribution strengths, which varies from a LATAM to a China to an India. So we took different models which we created based on local experiences, and we extended those models across a set of markets, close to 15 to 17 markets in 2018, in terms of customizing the capability and the content and the relevance for the market. The key thing here was, how do you learn really fast and rapidly scale across a certain set of markets? And our learning here was, there is no one single model which works across different markets. We need to identify the right model which is relevant for that market. And it's a combination of what are the market factors and Unilever's position of strength. And what we learned here was Brazil is very different, which is more wholesaler-led kind of a market vis-a-vis an India, which is more of a direct distribution market. And China, where you have the might of the digital players, et cetera, you can actually get tailwind from existing digital players in terms of building new capabilities. So we've looked at very different ways of approaching the same problem, rather than take a one-size-fits-all across globally, and segmented this by the market, by our capabilities, and deployed this in different parts of the world. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've been able to scale this up quite rapidly in 17, 18 markets. And it's also a function of our strength in this particular part of the business to take this and scale this across so many markets in a very agile manner. And we have another 10 markets which are up and running in 2019, which we want to deploy and take our overall markets to 25 plus. The key objective here is have agile business models, test, learn, redeploy really quickly so that you can scale this up really fast and take this to a sizable part of a general trade business in the next couple of years, because we believe we get a 2-3 year kind of a tailwind ahead of the rest of the competition. This will put us in a position of advantage vis-a-vis the rest in terms of where our traditional trade or a general trade business will stand. And it's not just about digitizing the business operations, it's also about how you can use this as a lever to grow the business, both in terms of the reach and in terms of the size of business that we want to drive. So in summary, our objective here is how do we create brilliant customer experiences, what would have been in a very disaggregated general trade kind of a business through digitally connected and digitally served solutions. We are digitally connected with Leverage, our distributor management system with bulk of our retailers across the globe, but how do we quickly move them to digitally served in terms of with our B2B and B2B2C solutions is our real primary goal. And as I said, automation is a great opportunity because it increases productivity, and it also reduces what I would call as routine tasks. So but it's also about how you can quickly leverage it to redeploy and optimize, because the end goal here is how can we enhance our reach, how do we serve more retailers, how do we serve more shoppers as part of Unilever. And I think for us, the key thing here is speed, convenience, and accuracy with the quality of data, with the quality of analytics that we have. We believe we can truly win in this dynamic retail landscape in general trade. Thank you. Andy?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Andy Hill. I lead information and analytics at Unilever. I'm relatively new to Unilever. I joined a year ago from a big data retail analytics company called dunnhumby, where I worked for 22 years, which I'm sure some of you have covered. And I work into Graham, just over here. I'm here to talk to you today about assisted and predictive decision-making. So our ambition is to help Unilever become data intelligent, powering every decision with data, advanced analytics, and artificial intelligence. You've heard over the last 2 days data and analytics repeated in many of the presentations, from each of the divisional presentations through to each of the digital ones that we've heard today. Data and analytics is central to our future. We are well underway with the restructuring and transformation of the information and analytics team, complementing our existing information resources with advanced analytics, data science, data expertise. And by the end of this year, we'll have transformed and replaced about 40% of the roles in the team. For our CCBTs, as part of C for G, assisted and predictive decision-making is really about 2 things. The first is about freeing up capacity to focus on growth and the decisions that matter. We still spend too much time creating manual, very time-intensive reports, manipulating data, taking data from different systems, putting that into Excel, into PowerPoint. That should all be done through automation. And today, we are moving very quickly down the automation path. And we have RPA, which is a term which has been used throughout the days, as one of our key processes, which I'll talk about later. That's the first thing. The second thing is achieving value today requires us to have more sophisticated analytics. We're providing the business with world-class analytics capability, powered through artificial intelligence and machine learning, to enable us to unlock the insights from the vast amounts of internal and external data that's available, to help our business teams on the front line make better, smarter, faster decisions. That's really what we mean by assisted and predictive decision-making. Another way of describing it is saying we're moving from descriptive diagnostic analytics to predictive and prescriptive analytics, moving from hindsight to foresight. That's quite conceptual. So what does that mean for the business teams? So if you sit in our Walmart team in Arkansas, and Amanda, our country president says we have an extra 10 million to spend on trade promotions, it's about saying, how do I optimize that 10 million spend to grow my volume, to grow my value, to grow my share, with all the different trade events, all the different discounts I could put forward, what are the right combinations to put in place to achieve our goal? Or as we heard yesterday from Priya in home care, with the concept of winning in many Indias here, it's about understanding how we use analytics to help make better decisions on investment choices, de-averaging, looking beneath the surface to see how do I win in Uttar Pradesh versus Tamil Nadu, which are the two geographies you talked about yesterday. Or it's about saying, how do I provide simulation tools to the team so that when we put through price increases, we can understand the impact on the business. We can also start to simulate what happens when our competitors respond and what that means for our consumers. So why this? Why now? Well, fundamentally, we believe there's an incredible value to be gained from the application of advanced analytics and artificial intelligence in the business. This slide here is from BCG. They share the same view that we have. If you can see the detail, there's about 10 different points on here from BCG, which says, from applying advanced analytics, from applying artificial intelligence, there is significant growth opportunity. So you'll see it says demand forecasting at the top, ROI measurement, allocation, through to precision media, through to R&D and testing acceleration. When you break it down, we've identified about 40 different areas where we can apply advanced analytics and artificial intelligence in the business. Now, this is deliberately an eye chart just to show you the sheer scale, but I'll just quickly talk it through so you can see it at the back. So on the left-hand side, it says, how can we use data analytics to reimagine business processes, from stronger brands, improving sourcing to shelf, and mass personalization, as Stan was talking about beforehand. But it's also about improving how we measure our performance, how we optimize our support functions, and on the right-hand side, how do we deliver innovative services, new business models that will help us in the future. So my task today is I'm going to show you a few of the examples of the work that we're doing today in a number of these areas. I'm going to start with a tool that was talked about yesterday, again by Priya, called Livewire, with a predictive analytics component called Jarvis, which started in India and is an incredible tool to help us improve how we measure performance, how we think about prediction, and how we help our business teams. Could you play the video?
CCBTs are at the heart of how Unilever operates. In a highly competitive and fast-evolving environment, our CCBTs need to be forward-looking and empowered with capabilities to solve complex challenges. Today, we spend significant time collecting data and drafting reports as we manage our day-to-day CCBT operations and communicate our progress. Livewire brings together data, advanced statistics, machine learning, and natural language processing into a single decision-making platform, freeing up capacity and enabling us to focus more on growth and forward-looking decisions and actions. The underlying cross-functional data set, integrating internal and external data sources, provides powerful and easy-to-consume diagnostics across financial, market, media, and portfolio performance. Livewire will fundamentally change the way our CCBTs access and interpret insights, supporting their decisions and actions. We are now building predictive analytics tools, the first component being Jarvis, the growth driver tool.
Jarvis is decision making. Yeah, Jarvis is all about bringing in correlations. Jarvis is about defining where the causal relationship between different variables exists. But this is not based on simple regression analysis. This is based on Bayesian modeling, and this significantly improves the quality of decision making in the business. This significantly improves the predictability of the outcome of the different variables, and this gives us an upper hand when it comes to playing the game in the marketplace.
So far, our users have had to rely on past performance and macro-level analytics to guide future decisions and actions. Jarvis unlocks the power of predictive performance and helps guide our users to identify growth opportunities or hotspots at granular levels, as well as the levers that will be most effective to drive this growth. Leveraging Bayesian networks and machine learning algorithms, Jarvis provides an early warning system, giving the user a forward-looking view of what is likely to happen. Along with identifying important drivers of growth in a cell and how much impact they have, Jarvis also provides a simple and intuitive decision simulator to map the projection of planned actions and the impact of potential competitor responses. Complementing the predicted view of performance in Jarvis, the outlier detection module uses machine learning to identify shifts in momentum of different SKUs in the marketplace. By mining the wealth of information in second and third-party datasets, Outlier provides alerts at an extremely granular level. This can help users spot new product launches ahead of disruption in the market, or potentially be first movers to capitalize on opportunities. Our ambition is to rapidly accelerate the Livewire global footprint. We aim to make Livewire available to our largest 100 CCBTs in the next 12 months.
So that's Livewire and Jarvis. And as it just said at the end, our ambition is to hit 100 CCBTs covering actually 70% of our turnover in the next 9 to 12 months, so that our CCBTs have the tools to be able to do their jobs better than anyone else. Second thing that's probably worthwhile saying about Jarvis. So Jarvis is the predictive element, and it's brilliant. Sanjeev was talking about Bayesian networks, and we chose Bayesian networks as our machine learning program to use because of the fact that it copes really well with a number of variables, about 40 different variables, but we can run numbers of different simulations and combinations of those variables. So each model that we have, and India has 200 models today, each model that we have has 40 variables, and then within that, we're running about 2.5 million different combinations of those variables each time so that our business users can understand the relative interactions of every single variable on things like growth, on things like the different levers we want to pull. Okay, so the second thing I'd like to share with you is on here it says advanced demand sensing, which is demand forecasting. If you remember from the BCG slide I showed you a few slides ago, that was the #1 area where applying advanced analytics and artificial intelligence can drive growth. It's probably worthwhile just talking a little bit about the demand forecasting process. Demand forecasting is clearly fundamental to our business process. If you think about it, improvements in the way in which we forecast demand impact our growth because we get better in terms of our customer service, and they also help to optimize our inventory too. When you think about the process itself, every market is running a weekly process where they're looking at thousands of SKUs, 30 categories, 20 brands, across 30 different customers or channels, and then trying to understand on top of that what happens with promotions, innovation, competitor launches, price changes, other competitor activity, and on the back of that, then trying to say, okay, how much do we think we're going to sell in the next 4 weeks, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, sorry, and understand on the back of how much we're going to sell, therefore how much we should produce. So it's really, really important. So over time, you can hopefully see it says manual forecasting, statistical modeling, automated baseline generation. Over time, if you think about it, a few years back, our forecasting approach was actually quite manual. It was quite primitive. Thousands of different spreadsheets, thousands of man-hours, as Peter was talking to you beforehand. But most importantly, a significant amount of human bias in the forecast, which therefore impacted the accuracy of the work. Now, over time, we've improved our analytics capability. So we've moved from statistical modeling to automated baseline generation. But even today, if you look at our most accurate, our best numbers by market, by category, we're only up to about 75 or 80% forecast accuracy for a 4-week period. So if you think about that, that's our best. If you think about that, there is a huge opportunity to improve for the business. And that's where we brought in machine learning to help us. And the reason I want to share it with you is because we've been working very hard on this over the past few months, and we actually have some really fantastic results. So I've not put absolute numbers on here. I've put basis points increase. And I'll just explain the slide very quickly, because it's a bit of an eye chart. It has 3 different markets: developed market A, B, and a developing and emerging market. And then with each one, it has a category: tea, hair care, dressings, fabric conditioner, and then it has 2 columns. On the right-hand side, it says DP, which stands for Demand Planner. On the left-hand side, it says Machine Learning, which is no human touch. In each one of the instances, Machine Learning now beats Demand Planning. Okay? So no touch beats human touch. The question I'm sure you're all wanting to ask is, how come? Why is that? So there's 2 major important elements which are on this slide. The first is that we can now apply much more advanced analytics. So I've just listed 3 different analytic capabilities that we have that we're applying that, of course, a demand planner can't really apply. They're using a statistical baseline and then applying their own thoughts on top of it and their own intuition. We're bringing in neural networks. We're bringing in gradient boost. We're bringing in random forest, which just all that really means is it gets more accurate. And the second, and probably the most important part, is bringing in more and different types of data. The more and different types of data that you can bring in, the more accurate your models can be, the better you can train them. And of course, a human can't deal with all the different data points. But all these data points are crucial when consumers are buying. What's on promotion? What's on deal? What's the weather like? What's the number of sunlight hours out there? What's the temperature? All those elements impact how we shop. So therefore, if we can put them in there, it will make our forecasting more accurate. Okay, and the final one, as I realize I'm running out of time, the final one is to talk to you very briefly about intelligent automation, or RPA, robotic process automation. So I know in your industries, RPA is used quite a lot: financial industry, insurance industry, places like that. It's also used very much here, and actually, Jane will talk a little bit about the sheer extent and the number of bots that we have in Unilever today, which is somewhere close to 500. In the information analytics team, we have bots which are specifically trained to be doing data, information, and analytics work. Today, we have 40 bots that are working 24 hours a day to unlock the amount of hours that people are spending with all the manual data, report creation, presentation, and the like. And it leads to a significant increase in efficiency. Could you roll the video?
Imagine a workforce with unstoppable momentum, infinite capacity, incredible speed of delivery, and 100% accuracy. Welcome to the I&A RPA Lab, where you can meet a software bot that can do exactly that. Robotic Process Automation, or RPA, is the concept underpinning the use of software with machine learning capabilities to handle high-volume, repeatable tasks. We have deployed 40 Automation Anywhere bots in the last 18 months. This has led to an increase in efficiency rates of approximately 40%. For future innovation, we are looking at opportunities to further scale rule-based automation, as well as experiment with increasingly more complex cases that drive towards autonomous automation.
So apologies, it's a super quick video, but the best way to think about it is any form of data extraction, transformation, loading, through to putting that into spreadsheets, through to understanding analytics on the back of the spreadsheet, putting it into a PowerPoint, creating a natural language summary on that PowerPoint, sending that PowerPoint as an email to everybody with email text on it, all can be done through computers today. So the more that we do it, the more that we can free up capacity. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with my final slide, which is really just a repeat of my first slide. Now, I've shown you 3 areas today of how we're using advanced analytics and artificial intelligence. As I said, there's about 40 different use cases that we're working on where we've identified priority areas, really, that apply holistically across the business. But the key takeaways really are that we are changing the team, making significant changes to the capability in data science, data, and analytics. That we are taking Livewire and Jarvis across 70% of our turnover into the top 100 CCBTs. We're going to be freeing up about 250,000 man-hours worth of time through RPA. And as we roll out and scale elements like machine forecasting, demand forecasting through machine learning, we'll start to see how we can achieve some of those growth numbers that we saw on the BCG chart. Okay, so I think I did that with 1 minute left. It's now time for Jane Moran, who's our CIO, who will talk to us about our technology strategy.
Yep, thanks, Andy. All right. Saving the best for last. There you go. I've had the pleasure of talking to a number of you over lunch and dinner, so hope this is not too much of a repeat. What I'm going to talk about today is really the core technology at Unilever that you heard all the great things we're doing in digital. Technology at Unilever really powers every function, division, and market. We support over 100,000 employees in 950 connected sites. So I'll tell you today how it's really driving business value. It's connecting our employee base and, importantly, enabling end-to-end process optimization, and how we are using technology to lead for competitive advantage. So over the last 4 years, we've been on a journey. You really can't have a core technology platform driving the organization unless you have a few things. Number one, it needs to be resilient. And we've really driven resiliency within our organization. Our core platform that drives our supply chain and finance is SAP, and a number of connected systems. And we've driven up resilience to 99.98%. And that's something that we pay attention to every day. We've also optimized how we operate. So we've driven down CapEx, and we've driven down our costs. So we've done that by being more efficient in how we manage within the function. Lena talked about organization. Talent, super important for us. We were heavily outsourced 4 years ago. We've insourced a number of key technology, core engineering roles at Unilever. Senior software engineers, enterprise architects, solutions architects, data scientists, all part of the organization today. And then most importantly, we've really built out an enterprise architecture that can be built globally, but shared locally in some of the examples you saw today. So what is this platform-based architecture? About 4 years ago, we were managing a lot of projects, and there was some really cool technology. Great examples of digital. Unilever's been doing digital for a very long time, but they were examples, and they were pilots, and they were experiments, some of them live, really good, but it was hard to leverage and scale them across our organization in over 200 countries. So a platform is an interconnected set of technologies that support a business capability and may even support a technology capability like Andy was talking about our information and analytics platform. We have worked very hard. We have 30 platforms today, and we've worked very hard to build these global platforms for local deployment. Here is what our platform architecture looks like today. And you can see some key names on here. So one of the premises of our platform-based architecture is partnering with some of the largest technology companies in the world. For example, let me just talk about consumer, because Stan was talking about consumer today. Adobe is really, we call it the Unilever Marketing Cloud, but it's underneath that is really the Adobe platform. And it's not just Adobe alone. It's Adobe connected to all the tooling that supports GDPR, data privacy, data management, security, master data management, analytics. There's a number of different technologies that make up that platform, but it's all interconnected. It manages all of our brand.com websites. And with this interconnected set of technologies, we're able to make a change once that we can deploy hundreds of times over. So the platform strategy really is, I mean, it's cost effective, but it helps us to scale super fast. It helps us to get innovations out there in the world, at lightning speed. And let me talk a little bit too about some of the companies that we're partnering with. But first, I'm going to talk about the principles. The principles of the platform. It's not just who we selected, but it's how we're deploying the technologies themselves. So we innovate around the core. What does that mean? SAP is the big ERP instance at the core of what we do, and we manage that globally. So we innovate around the edges. We don't have everything in a single platform. In fact, what we're doing is we're looking at other providers to provide that best-of-breed technology. And when we can't find the best-of-breed technology, then we will build it ourselves. But even in the way that we're building, we're using common components. And we use Salesforce, the Salesforce platform, to build out custom apps, but using a common technology so that we can build and deploy quickly. We also we're leveraging cloud. We're moving to cloud services, whether it's software as a service, infrastructure as a service, or platform as a service. It is just more efficient and more effective. Having our own data center for a company like Unilever is not cost effective. It's not a core competency for us. So we are moving as much as we can to public cloud services, which is really important. It's transforming our networks. It's transforming the way that we communicate with each other, and it's just making it faster for us to work. We build for mobile devices. I mean, that everybody is on a mobile. So that is the first build is mobile, and a PC would be the second build. We design for usability. We make it easy for the users to interface with our applications. We want to have a common look and feel. We manage about 2,500 business applications across Unilever. And we like the fact that when an employee goes in, whether it's an employee application or it's for their job, the look and feel of these applications is more consistent. And obviously, we are really, really concerned about cybersecurity, data privacy. So everything we build takes into account secure by design at the build. Now let me talk about some of the partners that we're working with. So our partnerships, the top four are here: Adobe, Microsoft, Salesforce, and SAP. Adobe, as I mentioned, is our consumer platform, helping us manage our brand.com websites and connecting to the 1 billion, potentially 2.5 billion consumers that Stan talked about. Microsoft, we're using Microsoft Azure for our information and analytics platform. We've gone big with Microsoft. They're managing our whole data platform. What we do, and we do well, are manage the individual technology platforms and the source data that we supply then to Microsoft. So we're using all of Microsoft's tooling, AI tooling, machine learning, cognitive, computer visioning on those data sets as we move them over to Microsoft. We also use Microsoft for all of our internal employee applications, Office 365, Skype for Business. We don't have phones on the desk anymore. We're all interconnected that way. Salesforce, as I mentioned, we're using for a common platform for custom apps. But we also use Salesforce for our sales CD that Badri talked about, trade promotions, and we're also using it in our customer care centers, Caroline's. And finally, SAP. SAP has been a good vendor to Unilever over the last 25 years. We are moving to the S/4HANA platform. We've got some of S/4HANA implemented. We find that it gives us a huge optimization, 10 times on the database side. And we're really looking forward to moving to their new platform. And we're moving in a cloud-based way. All four of these technology companies and many more, we have been working in close partnership, meaning that I have folks, even myself, working with their core product development teams. So Unilever is now getting the benefit of having our requirements in the core code bases of these companies plus about 25 more. That's made a huge difference for us. Number one, we're not paying for these. Number two, it's making it industrial strength. Whenever there's an upgrade, we don't have to worry about it. And that just makes us able to scale, and it makes us much more quick at innovating across our estate. But it's not just that. We're also working with universities. We're working with emerging partners. And we do work with some startups. And I work very closely with our ventures group and the Unilever Foundry. And finally, there are some emerging technologies. And we're learning, as Abby mentioned, around agility. We're also learning within Unilever Technology, how do we experiment and scale? So this just gives you a rough idea of some of the technologies that we're using, we're working with right now, and where we are in that journey. All of these that I have up here are actually under the umbrella term of artificial intelligence. And we do have some live examples. So we're doing some work in blockchain that's live, in a payments where we've automated payments through blockchain. In mixed reality, we have some wonderful examples with our supply chain and automation with robotics in our factories. Andy talked about RPA. We have 500 robotics programs live today, saving hundreds of thousands of hours at Unilever. But more importantly, I think, than just saving hours, we're actually transforming end-to-end processes. And then voice, I believe, is going to be a game changer. So we're already using Alexa today and other voice technologies in the consumer experience. And it's making a big difference. Lena didn't mention it, but we have voice. We've got a tool called Unibot that we run internally for our employees. You can just ask Una any question that you have. It crawls over the number of different employee applications that we have globally and will answer employee questions. That is getting hundreds of thousands of hits a week. So we're really happy with that. And then computer visioning, we've got some really cool examples of computer visioning. We mostly use it to actually track copycat products. That was a process that used to take us sort of months to track down the copycat. Now we can do it in weeks, if not hours. So that's it, kind of a whistle-stop tour through technology. I'm going to turn it over to, let's see, we're going to do question and answer now, Peter? Okay, and you're going to do a wrap-up.
Good. I hope you appreciate this whirlwind tour through the end-to-end digitalization of Unilever. Obviously, we could not touch on every topic. I realized that especially the supply chain and the product supply system in which you might be interested was not highlighted. But we have programs everywhere. What we also decided is to share with you a work in progress and not a finished product. And that was a little bit scary because we like to come with finished products. But the reality of this space is that it will forever stay in beta and it will stay a work in progress because the development goes so fast that when we stop developing, we have no chance building edge in this space. And as I said during my opening, ultimately, technology and technology like this will only give advantage when we implement in a very high quality way, at scale, at speed. And the speed is really important because I had a discussion with a couple of you who asked me, Peter, what's now really different for you? And for me, what is really different is clock speed. We used to think in years, quarters, months. As soon as you start digitizing your company, you start thinking quarters, months, weeks. And for us to stay competitive, speed is of the utmost importance. And as Lena said, and Lena, really happy with your contribution, it's the change management, it's the culture, it's the new talent which will make this work. When we don't get that component right, the technology as such will not save us. I believe it's a big opportunity to drive growth, to basically expand margin, and to make Unilever more competitive. Can we go to the questions and answer? And maybe I can ask my team to come on stage and help us. You guys can help us with some chairs. Richard, you are here, the question master. Thank you.
So we've had a couple of artificial intelligence robots up back.
All them, Laura and Becky. And these are the questions that we've come up with. Are you ready yet? No, you're not.
Yeah.
Actually, while people are, first one's probably for you, Peter, I think.
Yeah.
Because you've touched on it before. So when do you start digitizing manufacturing and other functions?
We are full on manufacturing. It's a pity that Mark is not here. We have a very elaborate program going from robotics in the factories to process automation to creating digital twins. It's probably the biggest makeover that our product supply system has ever seen. Other functions, we touched on HR. Graham has an unbelievable agenda to digitize the finance function. This touches every single part of the business. And, you know, obviously, as preparation for this, I went through lots of presentations of companies. And what we try to do is show you that this is actually not about only the marketing or only e-commerce. This is really end-to-end. And I think that is the big difference.
What should give people confidence in your credibility as a data collector? Hello, hello, hear me? Yeah. What should give people confidence in your credibility as a data collector and holder when we see such a large number of data breaches?
Yeah, there are two dimensions to this. One is, what is the type of data that we are collecting? I mean, unlike some of the financial companies or hotels or other people who have credit card information and stuff like that, we don't collect that kind of information. And also, if you look at the 900 million that I showed, 750 of them are anonymized data. So there is, you can't trace it back to Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so. They are device IDs. 150 million are personal identifiable information, but at best, you have a name and an address and some behavioral questions. So if you look at it closely, these are not the kind of sensitive information, we don't want that to be breached at all. Let me make that very clear. But there is not much can be done with that particular information. But having said that, Jane talked about, the technology platforms, and I would leave it to her to talk about how we actually secure the data from a technology perspective.
Yeah, so this is one of the benefits of some of the partnerships we have. So as Stan mentioned, some of the tooling that we use internally segregates and anonymizes the data. But we actually store this data with our third parties, our partners. So working with Adobe and Microsoft around data has been a huge benefit to us because we're getting the benefit of what they spend on cybersecurity. And so we're working really hard with them to ensure that we have the right cybersecurity in place. And we have a great governance process. Ritva, our Chief Legal Counsel, is here, and we head up with a few other folks our Information Protection Council, where we're consistently and constantly reviewing all of the different kind of security aspects, and especially around data.
Okay, thank you. Maybe for you, Lena, or you might want to comment, Peter. Are these digital skills just table stakes? P&G and others are doing the same things. Where do you see that we have a meaningful benefit for all these digital skills?
It's a great question. I'll start with the joke that Nitin shared with me last night. Can't hear me? Hello? Is that better?
Have we got a handheld we could use?
I wanted to start with a joke that Nitin shared with me last night. An enthusiastic CFO, not Graham, tells the CEO, why are we investing so much in people's skills? They're all going to leave. And the CEO says, what if we don't invest and they stay? So it's a bit like that. You have no choice but to invest in skills and continue investing at pace in skills. It is an imperative. Now, what I believe gives us, keeps us ahead of the curve, because I don't want to compare notes with anybody else, but what I think gives us the competitive edge is three things. One is we are developing our content through our practitioners. People learn best when it's peer-to-peer, not bought in bulk from some digital marketing company. The second is the way we are looking at it in Unilever. We're not saying digital skills. We're saying learn marketing in a digital world, learn HR in a digital world, learn finance in a digital world. So the core marketing skills of crafting brands, of communicating, all of that is also being invested in. You need both. You need both skills to be applied. And last but not the least, I think we are being very thoughtful about people and the impact on them. So we're investing in the soft stuff. You know, it's really hard to be an employee in today's day and age. You know, everywhere around you, people are saying unprecedented change, it's all different, the skills you have are irrelevant. It's a very scary time for people. And I think in Unilever, the work we're doing on helping people understand their purpose and passion, the work we're doing on ensuring people are feeling well, because anxiety across the world is going up in the workplace, the things we're thoughtfully doing in the soft stuff area, which is purpose, well-being, capacity building, those are the things that allow people to be motivated to use the new skills they're learning.
Shall I take the competitive part of the question? You know what's the beauty of all these digital products? That you can first test them before you scale them. So we look what works, what brings in the savings, what brings in the growth, and then when we see it works, only then we scale. And we know the parts of the business we're very competitive, like, for example, the GT program that we shared with you today. So we know value, you know, for every different part of the value chain, where we stand towards best in class, and work obviously on closing gaps and further deepening the moats when we have them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Which microphone? Don't know. Can you hear me? Yeah, good. Abby, of the new brand launches, how do you use your data to measure success? What's the key KPI? And a supplementary, which is how many failures have we had?
So KPIs, can you hear me? No. Hello? Hello? Okay. So KPIs first. It depends. So a slightly different definition of launch in this new way of working. So launch, these internal founders often talk more about your first revenue moment, which could be a full-scale national launch, or it could be a launch into your first customer or into a trial market. But the moment where you're first getting real consumers to pay real money for your brand, like Purify with Alibaba in China 3 weeks ago. So the KPIs which teams are looking at coming up to that first revenue moment are really around acquisition and awareness. Is anyone interested in my proposition? And how much does it cost me to actually get them to make that first purchase? But once they're actually at that first revenue moment, once we're at launch, the KPIs are very similar to running any other part of our business. It's how many people will buy this product and at what price, and will they come back a second time? So really the most important metrics, obviously they're all tracking a whole range of them, but the most important metrics they're tracking will be how many people, what's my trial rate, what's my penetration, and what's the repeat rate, which ultimately is the best immediate indicator of next step success. The next question then, how many of these, well, so obviously none of these have yet failed, because I've been sharing with you the ones that we've launched. It's also recent. Some of them will. I don't know how many. I challenge two things though. The notion of failure, we will stop some of these. I genuinely hope that we won't call them failures. It's a decision to stop. If we have launches that aren't working, it will be a decision to stop them, to stop spending money on them, and to very quickly reallocate that money and those people who've had this amazing learning experience onto other launches. So this time next year, we can tell you how many of those specific ones we've stopped. Just as a one data point, though, in terms of the projects, so almost a couple of hundred projects we've put through the Lean Like a Startup program in this year alone. Of those projects, we stopped half of them before we got to that first revenue moment. just to give you a feel. So half of those projects have been stopped this year before they even got out to market, with resources reallocated. About 20% have been launched, and you've seen some of them, and the remainder is still experimenting, testing, probably coming to launch or that first revenue moment over the next few months. If that gives you a feel for how much we're actually stopping before we get to launch. Case, did you want to?
Just to add, because I think it's absolutely critical that we're not only creating this culture of experimentation fast, but also stop fast. And so on the first day you saw a project which was actually live open. We launched it in Brazil, we launched it in Indonesia, we already have closed it down. And I think it's that this notion about how we do that, and that is being seen as success and not as failure in our culture, is actually a critical part of it. The second one is when we launched Love, Beauty and Planet and Apothecare in the US, we actually had 8 of them. And so this cycle about how fast that goes is so critically important. So I thought, let me just add to that. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Case. This one for you, Andy, I think. How do systems cope with uncharacteristic events like recessions and financial crises? Can the algorithms fail?
That's a very good question, whoever asked that. Yes, of course. And so when you think about things like our demand forecasting, for example, we're trying to beat what we do today. And it's easier to beat on certain SKUs than it is on others. Some are highly volatile with very few data points. And actually, for those, it can be quite hard. So algorithms aren't the answer to everything, but they are going to help us get a lot better. And we have to be very clear that at times there will be some things that may fail in the future. One of the things that we are working on at the moment is ensuring we have the right AI ethics within the organization. And within that, if you just jump down the detail of that, that's like making sure that we know that the algorithms that we're using are doing good, so that they don't have any bias within them. And it's about making sure that we understand how they're using the data, that we have enough data and enough quality data in them to make them work effectively too. So that would be my answer.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Badri, one for you. How much traction is B2B2C platform? If this was really successful, it would be worth tens of billions of dollars. What is the realistic market share potential?
I think we are approaching this a bit differently. As I had said in my presentation, we are looking at how to build direct shopper engagement. And as a part of that, as a consequence, it could lead to superior market shares and better business. But I think we haven't completely unraveled or unpeeled that part of it because it's too early. I think the key here is to build a platform where we can take general trade stores online, open platform through which we can learn, we can connect with the shoppers directly, and improve the way we manage our categories, promotions, shopper, basket analysis, etc. But to put a business value on this at this point of time, I'm not sure. But put a value on the data, I think we have a lot of rich data. Because when we get a lot of these rich data of the shoppers, the stores, and what they buy, I think we will be able to have some competitive advantage in the way we can leverage that data.
Okay, thanks, Badri. Jane, this one's for you. How much could your IT data investment spend increase? Will you be reallocating CapEx and investment?
That's such a good question. Everybody wants to know, out of all this money that Graham and I have saved, what we can invest in the organization. I think, first of all, we're at benchmark. We've done every benchmark. So anybody that wants to ask me about benchmarks later, I'm happy to talk about it. So we're at a great operating between CapEx and OpEx. But the question is, what is really the governance around when you have a good idea? How do you transact on that idea and really bring it to life? And additionally, incur extra expense on the technology. And I think that's right. You can't hold yourself to a single number if what you're trying to do is innovate in digital. So we have a process. We work with our business partners. They bring an idea. They have a business case. Either they're going to make us more money or save us more money, and they're held accountable for that business case. And we do, I think, really think this process is working, and we've got a number of great examples of this already.
Okay, thanks, Jane. Peter, I think, are you concerned about ad blocking?
Obviously we are. You know, access to consumers is really important for us. Ad blocking, whether that's on television, through smart systems, or a mobile phone, stops access. So one of the reasons we built our own consumer databases is because we want to own our own relationship with the consumer. And I think increasingly this will become really important. And this is a really good moment to scale rapidly because, you know, as you have heard, in Thailand, within a couple of months, we had half the population in the system. But it won't go that easy in a number of years' time. So this is the moment to build the systems and build the databases and avoid being blocked by whoever in our relationship with the consumer.
Thanks, Peter. Stan, very much for you. Is there a risk that consumers get fatigued with the number of one-to-one interactions with FMCG companies as they keep seeking to have more and more? If so, what is Plan B?
What's Plan B? That's a great question. Yes, if you flood them with a lot of one-to-one messages, people will get tired. You know, if you just look at your own personal experience, you can get tired. I get tired. So totally, utterly conscious of that. But at the end of the day, you know, you have to ask yourself one question. Whatever you're pushing, is that going to add value to the consumer? And if it is going to add value to the consumer will give you permission. And that's the reason why when we have these one-to-one conversations, we have fairly extensive A/B testing approaches that we have. And we make sure that, you know, whatever we put out there has got a reasonable chance of sticking. Otherwise, we pull it out relatively quickly. And that's why, you know, at scale, in a matter of hours, if you can't do A/B testing to find out which content is going to work, which is not going to work, then you could actually end up spending a fair amount of money on things that don't connect with consumers, probably even irritate them. And therefore, you know, we have to be very, very careful, extremely careful. So value to consumer is the headline. If you can figure that out, and you have to keep experimenting. What is value today is not value tomorrow. And that's something that, you know, we are seized with on an ongoing basis. Yep.
Okay, just time for a couple more. Peter, acquisitions. We've acquired 25 businesses, and some of these are more advanced in terms of digital migration. What have you learned from these, and how are you implementing these learnings?
Yeah, obviously, when you look to a business like the Dollar Shave Club, which has a transactional relationship with 4 million people, they had a very sophisticated consumer engagement and consumer performance marketing system. And we took learnings from these businesses and built it now in mainstream capabilities for which we leverage the Unilever Digital Hub. So buying businesses which are ahead of the curve, operating in markets that are ahead of the curve is absolutely essential for us to stay sharp. When we can make it in China, I tell you, we'll also make it in Indonesia. But when we can make it in Myanmar, doesn't make it, you know, there's no reason why we should make it in a very digital, sophisticated place. So these businesses are super important, and operating and winning in the sharp markets, really important for our general skills and capabilities.
Okay, look, we've got time for one more. Look, there's a few questions that haven't been answered. Just grab the appropriate person during the break and corner them and get the answers to your questions. But just one last one, which is probably Stan, but maybe Peter. Can you give some examples of the sales uplift from migrating traditional advertising to digital advertising for the core brands?
Okay. We look at uplift at multiple levels, you know, upper funnel metrics and lower funnel metrics. As you know, we have a reasonably sized e-commerce business, but it is not that, you know, it is 30–40% of our business. It is relatively a small portion of the business. So to the extent that we can actually take it all the way down to sales, we have not had any case studies as yet. You know, it's not that, you know, they have failed, but it is not that we haven't been able to take it all the way. But we have come all the way up to end of the funnel. So, you know, she talked about there are certain things like, you know, acquisition awareness, equity, and then go all the way down to click-through rates and so on, up until that point. Till that point, they click on buy it now and it goes to some e-commerce platform. Up to that point, we can track. We have the ability to track a consumer up to that point. Beyond that point, we cannot track. Because it goes into, let's say, an Amazon platform, you only get very minimal data out of them. So we don't know unless and until we have our own e-commerce websites, we won't be able to do that. But then some of our prestige brands that we have acquired, we have seen that general audience versus custom audiences that we've been able to create using a data-driven marketing approach, we get up to 10% incremental uplift in sales. But those are for some of the prestige brands who also sell directly to consumers.
And obviously, we measure advertising effectiveness and continuously benchmark the whole media mix from radio to billboards to television through digital to targeted digital. And as you saw in many cases, which we also showcased, that the effectiveness of well-targeted audiences and content lifts the effectiveness of campaign by a factor 2 to 3, continuously across the world.
Okay, thank you, Peter, and thank you, everybody. As I say, ask the questions, corner them, and get the answer to your questions. Thank you, digital team.
Thank you.